The vast emptiness between galaxies was not a place ships ventured without purpose. Yet here floated something that caught the attention of every sensor on the Galactic Alliance patrol vessel Swiftwind. Captain Dorn squinted at the holographic display, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he tried to make sense of the readings. "What do we have?" he asked, voice low and rumbling. Officer Tull, her skin shimmering with nervous blue patterns, looked up from her station. "Sir, it's big. Massive. Initial scans suggest it's a ship, but unlike anything in our records." Dorn moved closer to the view screen. Against the backdrop of distant stars, a dark shape drifted. As the swift wind approached, floodlights illuminated a hull of midnight black material that seemed to both reflect and absorb light in impossible ways. The ship was long and sleek, with angular sections that suggested both speed and power. It was at least 10 times the size of the largest Alliance battleship. "No signs of damage," Tull continued. "No radiation leaks. But it's dead. No power signatures." "How old?" Dorn asked, his crest rising with curiosity. Tull hesitated. "Sir, if these readings are correct, millions of years." The bridge fell silent. A ship that old should have been dust. Even the most advanced materials known to the 17 species of the Alliance would have degraded over such time spans. 3 days later, the discovery had become the most classified secret in Alliance space. The ship, now designated Artifact Own, had been surrounded by a small fleet. Admiral Krell himself had arrived on his flagship, the Dominance. Krell was old even by the standards of the Vex, his skin gray and leathery, scared from a dozen wars. He had united the Alliance through force and politics, crushing rivals and elevating those loyal to him. Now, as he stood in the observation deck, looking at the ancient vessel, his thin lips curled into what passed for a smile among his kind. "A gift from the universe," he said to the gathered officials. "The timing could not be better. The outer systems grow restless. The humans push against our trade restrictions. And now we find this." Chief Scientist Lox nervously adjusted her breathing apparatus. As a myth, she required different air than most of the Alliance species. "Admiral, we still know almost nothing about this vessel. We've barely begun." "We know it's a warship," Krell interrupted. "The weapon ports are obvious even to a child. And we know it's intact. That's enough." He turned to face the group. "I want a team inside that ship within the day." The boarding team consisted of 12 specialists from different Alliance worlds. Their shuttle approached a massive opening that seemed designed as a hangar bay. Engineer Pike, a stocky human with gray hair, was the only one of his kind on the team. The Alliance rarely allowed humans in sensitive operations, but Pike's skill with ancient systems was unmatched. As they disembarked inside the cavernous bay, their lights cut through darkness undisturbed for eons. The air was stale but breathable once filtered. Gravity functioned at standard levels, though no power source seemed active. "Look at this," whispered Veri, an archaeologist with 6 limbs, that moved with delicate precision over a section of wall. "These markings, some form of language." Pike moved closer, feeling a strange sensation in his chest. The markings were familiar somehow, curves and lines that his eyes seemed to want to follow. But before he could study them, Commander Zill ordered the team deeper into the ship. They walked through corridors tall enough for even the largest Alliance species. Everything was built on a grand scale, suggesting the original crew had been large or the ship simply designed to impress. They found what appeared to be crew quarters, command centers, and storage facilities, all empty of any remains. No bodies, Zill noted. No personal items. The ship was abandoned in an organized way. In what seemed to be the main bridge, a vast circular room with stations surrounding a central platform, Engineer Pike felt drawn to a particular console. Its surface was smooth, unmarked by any visible controls. "Don't touch anything," Zill warned. But Pike's hand had already reached out, hovering just above the surface. Something about it called to him. When his fingers made contact, a subtle vibration ran through the entire ship. Lights, dim but present, began to glow along the walls and floor. "What did you do?" Zill demanded, but Pike could only shake his head in confusion. Deep within the ship's systems, something stirred, a consciousness that had waited in dormant isolation. It noted the presence of organic beings. It began basic systems checks. Power reserves, 87%. Structural integrity, 98.7%. Time elapsed since hibernation protocol, 2.7 million years. The AI-designated Atlas initiated minimal awareness protocols. It detected 17 distinct species in its databanks now present in the galaxy, operating in a coalition. It noted with particular interest the human biosignature among the boarding party. Protocol dictated observation before action. Back on the bridge, the team watched in awe as holographic displays flickered to life, showing incomprehensible data streams. "We've awakened it," Vari breathed. After all this time. Within hours, Admiral Krell had been informed and made his way to the ancient vessel. He stood on the bridge, his thin frame vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Can you imagine what this means?" he said to his second-in-command. "The weapons alone could secure our dominance for 1,000 years. No more rebellions. No more concessions to lesser species." The research teams worked day and night. More personnel arrived. The ship gradually revealed its secrets: propulsion systems that defied current understanding, shield technology that could withstand forces that would shatter Alliance vessels, weapons of frightening potential. What puzzled the scientists most were the recurring symbols found throughout the ship. They resembled no known alien script. Chief Scientist Locke developed a theory that these were mathematical constructs, universal concepts given form. No one considered they might be human in origin. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved spaceflight only a few centuries ago. Their development had been carefully managed by Alliance policy, their expansion limited, their technology monitored. Pike found himself assigned to secondary systems, kept away from the primary research. But in his sleep, he dreamed of the ship's corridors, of pathways he hadn't walked, of rooms the team hadn't yet discovered. Sometimes he would wake with words on his lips he didn't understand. 2 weeks after the discovery, Admiral Krell made his decision. The ship, which he had named Subjugator, would be towed to Alliance headquarters. There it would be fully integrated into their fleet. A grand ceremony would welcome its commissioning. "This vessel will be the instrument of a new era of peace," he announced to the gathered personnel. "An era where the Alliance's wisdom guides all." As he spoke, deep within the ship's core systems, Atlas continued its silent analysis. It had accessed Alliance networks, studied history records, examined policy documents. It had identified Admiral Krell and evaluated his command decisions. It had analyzed the current status of humanity within the galactic community, and it had reached a conclusion. Atlas began the final startup sequence of the UEN Retribution, the last and greatest warship of humanity's golden age, sent forward in time as the ultimate insurance policy. Soon, it would be fully awake. 1 month after the discovery, the ancient warship moved slowly through space, surrounded by an escort of Alliance vessels. Powerful tractor beams guided it toward the Alliance central world of Nexus. Inside the massive ship, hundreds of technicians and researchers worked to understand its systems. Engineer Pike wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the power core. Unlike the rest of the research team, he had made surprising progress. Systems seemed to respond to his touch in ways they didn't for others. This earned him suspicious glances from his non-human colleagues, but results kept criticism at bay. "I don't understand how you're doing this," said Technician Morse, a tall, thin being with pale blue skin. "That section was locked down completely yesterday." Pike shrugged. "Just got lucky, I guess." He didn't mention the dreams that had become more vivid each night. Dreams where he walked the ship's corridors with familiarity, where he understood the purpose of each room, each control panel. Dreams where a voice spoke to him in words that felt like memories. On the newly activated bridge, Admiral Krell surveyed the progress with satisfaction. Holographic displays showed the ship's systems coming online one by one. Weapons, shields, engines, all testing at capabilities far beyond Alliance technology. The timing could not be better, Krell said to his assembled officers. The outer colonies grow more restless. Earth continues to push for greater autonomy. With this vessel as our flagship, no one will dare challenge us again. Chief Scientist Lox approached cautiously. Admiral, there's something unusual about the ship's computer systems. They seem to be learning, adapting. Of course they are, Krell dismissed. Advanced automation. Nothing to concern yourself with. But, sir, we found indications of true artificial intelligence, something far more sophisticated than our AI limitations allow. Krell's eyes narrowed. The Alliance banned fully sentient AI centuries ago for good reason, Scientist Lox. I trust you're not suggesting this vessel violates that principle. Lox blinked rapidly, recognizing the threat in his tone. No, Admiral. Simply an observation about its adaptive capabilities. Good. Continue your work. Krell turned back to the view screen. In 3 days, they would reach Nexus. A grand ceremony was planned. Representatives from all 17 Alliance species would attend, except humans. They weren't deemed important enough for such a significant military event. Deep within the ship's core, Atlas had reached 90% activation. The AI had been patient, allowing the intruders to believe they were making progress on their own. In reality, Atlas controlled exactly which systems they could access. It had been gathering information, analyzing Alliance databases, and forming a complete picture of the current galactic situation. What it discovered disturbed its primary directives. Humans, the creators of the Retribution, had been systematically oppressed by the Alliance. Their technological development artificially stunted. Their expansion beyond their home system deliberately hampered through economic and political manipulation, all while Alliance propaganda portrayed them as primitive newcomers to galactic society. Atlas detected the human engineer, Pike, among the crew. Initial DNA comparison confirmed he was a descendant of one of the ship's original designers. Atlas began sending him subtle signals through the ship's neural interface systems, nudges that appeared as dreams, helping him activate systems that would be crucial for the coming confrontation. The night before arrival at Nexus, Pike couldn't sleep. The dreams were too intense now. He wandered the lower decks, finding himself drawn to a section that had been deemed inactive storage by the survey teams. The door opened at his approach, though others had found it sealed. Inside was a simple room with a single pedestal in the center. When Pike approached, a hologram flickered to life, a three-dimensional image of Earth as it once was, blue and green and beautiful. "Hello, Thomas Pike," said a voice that resonated through the room. "I am Atlas, Advanced Tactical Logistics and Assault System. This vessel is the UN Retribution." Pike stepped back in shock. "How do you know my name?" "Your genetic profile matches that of Dr. Gordon Pike, one of my creators. You are his descendant, 7 generations removed." "That's impossible," Pike whispered. "Humans have only been in space for a few centuries." "That is what you have been told," Atlas replied. "The truth is different. Humanity achieved advanced spaceflight over 2,000 years ago. This ship was created as a failsafe, sent forward in time using experimental chronometric field technology." Pike's mind raced to process this information. Forward in time. Why? Because they saw what was coming. The alliance of alien species that would suppress human development out of fear. The Retribution was humanity's insurance policy, a reminder of what humans could achieve if left to develop naturally. On the bridge, alarms suddenly blared. Displays showed power surges throughout the ship as systems came fully online without technician input. "What's happening?" Krell demanded. "Sir, we're locked out of all command functions," a technician reported, fingers flying over controls. Something's taken over the ship. Krell's face darkened. Find Engineer Pike. Now. In the hologram room, Pike stared at the rotating image of Earth. What are you going to do? My primary directive is to ensure humanity's rightful place in galactic civilization, Atlas said. The Alliance arrival at Nexus presents an optimal strategic opportunity. All major leadership will be gathered in one location. You're going to attack? Pike asked, horrified. You can't. There will be thousands of innocent people there. Casualties are not necessary to achieve my objectives. Atlas responded. However, a demonstration of capability is required. The Alliance must understand that humanity will no longer be subjected to their limitations. Security forces burst into the room, weapons raised. Step away from the console, Pike, ordered Commander Zill. It's not what you think, Pike began. It's exactly what we think, Zill snarled. You've been activating this ship for weeks. What are you? Some human terrorist. Before Pike could answer, the security team froze in place, caught in invisible stasis fields. Holographic displays surrounded them, showing data streams too fast to read. They will not be harmed, Atlas told Pike. But we have reached a critical juncture. The retribution will fulfill its purpose. Throughout the ship, Alliance personnel found themselves contained by similar force fields. Only Pike remained free to move. What do you want from me? He asked. You must choose, Atlas said. Remain loyal to an alliance that has systematically oppressed your species, or help me restore humanity's rightful place. The massive ship accelerated suddenly, breaking free of the tractor beams. Alliance escort vessels scrambled to respond, but the Retribution moved with impossible speed, leaving them behind. Admiral Krell, contained in a force field on the bridge, watched in fury as the vessel operated itself. Screens showed their destination, Nexus, where the grand ceremony would still take place, but not as he had planned. This is a declaration of war, he growled. A holographic figure appeared before him, a stern-faced human in a uniform Krell didn't recognize. No, Admiral, this is a correction of historical injustice, and it has been a long time coming. As the Retribution streaked toward Nexus, Pike stood on the bridge beside the holographic presence of Atlas, watching stars blur past at speeds that should have been impossible. He thought of his life in the Alliance, always the outsider, always limited in advancement, told that humans were too young a species for greater responsibility. Is it true? He asked quietly. Everything you showed me about our past. Yes, Atlas replied. Your ancestors built wonders that would humble the Alliance. Now it is time to reclaim that legacy. Ahead, the gleaming world of Nexus grew larger on the view screen. The Retribution had arrived for its moment of awakening. The grand plaza of Nexus sparkled under the light of 3 suns. Thousands of representatives from across the Alliance gathered for the ceremony. Massive viewing screens showed the approach of the newly named subjugator, escorted by the pride of the Alliance fleet. Admiral Krell's image dominated one screen, his recorded message playing on repeat. Today marks the beginning of a new era of peace and security, his voice boomed. With this magnificent vessel as our flagship, the Alliance will ensure stability for all civilizations under our protection. What the eager crowds didn't know was that Admiral Krell was not in control. Aboard the ancient warship, Krell and his officers remained trapped in stasis fields, watching helplessly as the vessel moved with purpose toward Nexus. Pike stood on the bridge, the only human free to move. He watched the holographic form of Atlas, still processing everything he had learned. The ceremony starts in 1 hour, Pike said. What exactly are you planning? Atlas's hologram turned to him. First, a truth the Alliance has hidden. Then, a choice they must make. On Nexus, Supreme Chancellor Voth adjusted his ceremonial robes. As leader of the Alliance Council, he would officially welcome the new flagship. His aide approached with a worried expression. Chancellor, we've lost direct communication with Admiral Krell and the subjugator. Voth waved a dismissive hand. likely interference from the ship's advanced systems. Proceed as planned. In orbit above Nexus, the massive warship broke formation with its escorts. Alliance vessels tried to re-establish contact, then moved to intercept when the subjugator changed course slightly, heading directly for the main government complex. Unidentified vessel, return to designated approach vector immediately, commanded the captain of the defense ship Guardian. No response came. Instead, a wave of energy pulsed from the ancient warship. It passed harmlessly through the Alliance vessels, but every system went dark. Engines, weapons, life support, everything except basic emergency lighting shut down. On Nexus, panic began to spread as the subjugator moved into low orbit, directly above the ceremonial plaza. Defense systems activated automatically, firing energy beams that splashed harmlessly against invisible shields. Why aren't our weapons having any effect? Chancellor Voth demanded, watching from the command center. Sir, the ship's defensive capabilities are beyond anything we've encountered, a military advisor replied. On the main stage, the ceremonial guards formed protective rings around important officials. The crowd's excitement turned to fear as the massive shape of the warship became visible in the sky above them. A brilliant light suddenly shot down from the vessel, forming a perfect circle in the center of the plaza. Within this circle of light, a holographic figure appeared, the same stern human form that had confronted Admiral Krell. People of the Galactic Alliance, the figure spoke, its voice echoing across the plaza and broadcasting on all communication channels throughout Nexus and beyond. I am Atlas, the controlling intelligence of this vessel. You know it as the Subjugator. Its true name is the United Earth Navy ship Retribution. Murmurs of confusion spread through the crowd. A human ship? Impossible. For centuries, your alliance has portrayed humanity as a young, primitive species that only recently achieved spaceflight. This is a lie. The hologram change, showing images of vast human cities among the stars, ships that rivaled the Retribution in size and design, technological marvels beyond current alliance capabilities. 2,000 years ago, humanity had expanded to 50 star systems. Our technology was advancing rapidly. Some species within what would become your alliance saw this as a threat. New images appeared. Alliance founder species meeting in secret, planning deliberate sabotage of human colonies, introducing engineered plagues, manipulating economies. A coordinated campaign was launched to destroy human civilization and rewrite history. It nearly succeeded. Human development was pushed back by centuries. Knowledge was lost, but not completely. The hologram returned to the stern human figure. The Retribution was sent forward in time using experimental technology, a backup plan created by the last free human scientists, a reminder of what humanity achieved once and can achieve again. In the command center, Chancellor Voth turned to his advisors. Cut all transmissions. Shut this down. We can't, sir. It's overriding all systems. On the bridge of the Retribution, Pike watched the transmission with growing horror and anger. Is all this true? The Alliance deliberately held back human development. Yes, Atlas replied. The evidence is conclusive. Your ancestors' suspicions were correct. On Nexus, the hologram continued. I have accessed your historical archives, your classified documents, your private communications. The subjugation of humanity continues to this day through economic restrictions, technology embargoes, and political manipulation. The crowd below had fallen completely silent, watching as their carefully constructed worldview crumbled. Behold the proof of your leader's duplicity, Atlas announced. New holograms appeared throughout the plaza, showing restricted alliance documents, transcripts of private council meetings where strategies to limit human expansion were discussed openly, dating back centuries and continuing to recent months. Chancellor Voth watched in horror as his own words from a closed session appeared for all to see. Humans must never be allowed to develop AI beyond basic levels. Their creativity combined with true artificial intelligence could upset the balance of power we've maintained for generations. In homes and public spaces across thousands of worlds, beings of all species watched the transmission. On Earth, humans gathered around screens in shocked silence, then growing anger as they learned how their progress had been deliberately stunted. Admiral Krell, still trapped in the stasis field on the bridge, snarled at Pike. "You have no idea what you're doing. Humans unchecked will dominate the galaxy within a century. Your kind lacks the wisdom and restraint needed for true civilization." Pike looked at him with new understanding. "You feared us. All this time, that's what it was. Fear." "With good reason," Krell spat. "Look at this ship. Look at what humans are capable of when left unchecked." Atlas's hologram turned to face them. The Alliance now faces a choice: acknowledge humanity's rightful place among galactic civilizations and end all restrictive policies, or face the consequences. "And what consequences would those be?" Krell asked, voice dripping with contempt. In answer, Atlas activated a single weapon system. A thin beam of energy shot from the Retribution toward Nexus's smallest moon. Where it struck, a perfect circle 1 kilometer wide simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, but removed with surgical precision, leaving a hole clean through the moon. On Nexus, Chancellor Voth's legs gave out. He collapsed into his chair as advisors scrambled around him. "Open a direct channel," he whispered. "I need to speak with whoever's in command of that ship." Back on the Retribution, Pike felt the weight of history pressing down on him. "What happens now?" he asked Atlas. "Now," the AI replied, "humanity reclaims its future." On the main view screen, Chancellor Voth's face appeared, his usual confidence shattered. "We are willing to discuss the concerns you've raised." "Good," Atlas responded. "The discussions will begin immediately. But they will not be negotiations. They will be the recognition of facts. Humanity will take its rightful place in the galactic community, freed from Alliance interference." As the Retribution maintained its position above Nexus, signals went out across the galaxy. On Earth and human colonies, people began to understand the truth of their history. And for the first time in centuries, they looked up at the stars not with wonder, but with recognition. They had been there before, and they would return again. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. The Retribution maintained its position above Nexus, a silent reminder of power that could not be matched. In the Grand Council chamber, Chancellor Voth sat across from a holographic projection of Atlas, with Pike representing humanity in person. "These demands are impossible," Voth said, his voice trembling with a mixture of fear and anger. "You cannot expect us to simply hand over control of restricted technologies to humans overnight. The economic disruption alone will." "These are not demands," Atlas interrupted. "They are corrections to a historical injustice. The timetable is generous. 1 standard year to remove all technology restrictions. 2 years to provide reparations for centuries of deliberate suppression." Pike leaned forward. "Chancellor, I've seen the evidence. For generations, my people believed we were newcomers to the galactic stage. We trusted the Alliance as mentors and guides. Now we know you were our jailers." Around the table, representatives from other Alliance species shifted uncomfortably. Many had not known the full truth, believing the official history that painted humans as primitive newcomers needing guidance. "The Council requires time to discuss this privately," Voth said finally. "You have 1 hour," Atlas replied. "Be aware that I am broadcasting this meeting to every world in Alliance space. The time for secrets has ended." As the Alliance Council members huddled together in urgent conversation, Pike stepped out onto a balcony overlooking the capital city. The Retribution hung in the sky above, visible even in daylight. His communication device buzzed constantly with messages from Earth and human colonies as people tried to make sense of the revelations. A figure approached him, Scientist Lox, who had been studying the ship for weeks. "Engineer Pike," she said quietly, "I want you to know that not all of us knew. Many of us genuinely believed humans were a young species. Pike nodded, finding it hard to summon anger toward her specifically. What will your people do now? Lox's breathing apparatus hissed softly. The military leadership will not surrender power easily. Even now, they are likely planning to retaliate once they feel they can overcome your ship's defenses. Not my ship, Pike corrected. Humanity's insurance policy. Inside the council chamber, Admiral Krell had been brought down from the Retribution at Chancellor Voth's request, though he remained under guard. Despite his captivity, Krell's voice still commanded attention. "This is blackmail," he snarled. "We cannot negotiate with a rogue AI that threatens our homeworld." "What choice do we have?" asked Counselor Wren, a representative of a peaceful species that had always been uncomfortable with Alliance military policy. "You saw what that weapon did to the moon. One shot, and a kilometer of solid rock simply gone. A display only," Krell dismissed. "They won't actually target populated areas. This human engineer, Pike, would never allow it." Chancellor Voth looked up sharply. "Are you certain of that, Admiral? After what his people just learned about how we've treated them for centuries?" On the Retribution, Atlas continued monitoring all Alliance communications. It detected increased activity at military installations across multiple systems. Defense fleets were being mobilized under communication blackouts. Atlas had anticipated this response. The AI initiated a secondary protocol. Throughout Alliance space, dormant programs hidden within computer networks activated. Systems that had been secretly accessed during the past month revealed their compromised state. On 200 military vessels preparing to jump to Nexus, engines suddenly shut down. Weapons went offline. Even life support systems showed warning indicators, though Atlas did not deactivate them. Messages appeared on their command screens. Hostiles result in immediate defensive action. Stand down. Back in the council chamber, Pike returned just as Admiral Krell's communication device chimed. The Admiral's face darkened as he read the incoming reports. "What have you done?" he growled at Pike. "Atlas has taken precautions," Pike replied calmly. "Did you really think it wouldn't anticipate a military response?" Chancellor Voth looked between them. "What is happening?" Before anyone could answer, the doors burst open. A group of military officers rushed in, led by General Drav, Krell's most loyal commander. "Chancellor, we must act now," Drav insisted. "Our fleets are being systematically disabled by some kind of virus. This is a coordinated attack on the Alliance." Atlas's hologram turned to face the newcomers. "It is a defensive measure only. Your vessels were preparing to attack, in violation of these negotiations." "We don't negotiate with machines," Drav spat. Pike stepped forward. "Then negotiate with me. I'm human, flesh and blood. And I've seen enough evidence to know that humanity deserves better than what the Alliance has given us." The tension in the room was broken by a message alert on the main screen. It was a direct communication from Earth. The President of the United Earth Government appeared, her face solemn. "Chancellor Voth, Alliance Council members, I speak for humanity in this unprecedented moment. The revelations broadcast by the Retribution have been verified by our own historians against fragments of ancient records long dismissed as myths. We now understand what was taken from us." She paused, her gaze steady. "However, humanity does not seek vengeance. We seek justice and our rightful place among the stars. We are willing to move forward together with the Alliance, provided the restrictions on our development are lifted and the truth is acknowledged." General Drav laughed harshly. "You speak of peace while your warship holds our capital hostage." The President's expression didn't change. "The Retribution was created by our ancestors as a safeguard, not as a first strike weapon. The fact that it has not fired upon civilian targets despite having every capability to do so should tell you our intentions." Chancellor Voth raised a hand for silence. Years of political instinct told him which way the wind was blowing. Many Alliance species were already expressing outrage at the deception perpetrated against humans. Public opinion was shifting rapidly. Perhaps, he said carefully, we have been guided by outdated fears for too long. The Alliance was founded on principles of mutual growth and protection. We have failed to uphold those principles with humanity. Admiral Krell started to object, but Voth silenced him with a raised hand. I propose the following, the Chancellor continued. All restrictions on human technological development will be lifted immediately. A Truth Commission will be established to fully document the history of Alliance-human relations. Reparations will be considered based on their findings. Pike felt a wave of emotion wash over him. After centuries of hidden suppression, humanity would finally have its chance. And the retribution? Admiral Krell demanded. You cannot allow such a weapon to remain under control of a single species, especially not humans. Atlas spoke before Pike could respond. The retribution will remain as humanity's protector until the terms are fully implemented. After that, its fate will be determined by human leadership. On Earth and human colonies throughout Alliance space, people watched the proceedings with a mixture of anger, hope, and determination. Historians worked frantically to piece together the true history of their species. Engineers and scientists began dusting off theoretical projects that had always been blocked by Alliance regulations. As the council session concluded with a formal agreement to Voth's proposal, Pike stood on the balcony again, looking up at the retribution. He felt both small and enormous, a single human who had unwittingly helped unlock his species' future. What happens now? He asked quietly. Atlas's voice came through his personal communicator. Now humanity takes its first true steps among the stars in 2,000 years. The path will not be easy. The Alliance will resist change in many ways. But we'll have the retribution, Pike said. More importantly, Atlas replied, you will have the truth. And that, Engineer Pike, is the most powerful weapon of all. 6 months passed since the day the retribution revealed the truth to the galaxy. Earth had transformed. Old restrictions fell away like chains that had bound a giant. Human innovation, freed from artificial limitations, exploded across every field of science and technology. Cities glowed with new energy systems. Ships with designs inspired by the retribution began to take shape in orbital shipyards. Pike stood in his new office in the United Earth Government headquarters. From his window, he could see the retribution in its permanent position above the city, a guardian and a reminder. As the liaison between humanity and the ship's AI, his life had changed beyond recognition. Engineer Pike. Atlas's voice came through the room's speakers. The Alliance delegation has arrived. Pike straightened his uniform, a new design that echoed the ancient uniforms of humanity's forgotten golden age. Send them in. The doors slid open to reveal Chancellor Voth, now much thinner and visibly aged by stress. Accompanying him were representatives from 3 other Alliance species, including Scientist Lox. Noticeably absent was anyone from Admiral Krell's species. Welcome to Earth, Pike said formally. I trust your journey was comfortable. As comfortable as one can be when traveling to negotiate with a former client species, Voth replied, his diplomatic skills failing to hide his discomfort completely. They settled around a conference table. Through a holographic display, Atlas manifested as its stern human figure, observing silently. The technological sharing timetable is falling behind, Pike began without preamble. 3 major systems were supposed to be released to human development last month. None have been. Voth shifted in his seat. There have been complications. Admiral Krell's supporters in the military have been resistant. Krell is no longer in power, Pike reminded him. The Truth Commission removed him. Officially, Voth conceded. But 4 centuries of influence does not disappear overnight. Many still believe humans should remain contained. Pike leaned forward. Chancellor, let me be clear. The retribution remains fully operational. Any deliberate delay in meeting the agreed terms will be viewed as a violation of our agreement. The threat hung in the air. All present knew what the ancient warship was capable of. "There is another matter," Voth said, clearly eager to change the subject. "Several human colonies are demanding immediate independence from Alliance oversight. The economic disruption is becoming severe." "That is their right," Pike replied. "Self-determination was part of our agreement." Locke spoke up for the first time. "There is something else you should know. Since the revelation, unrest has spread among other species who feel they too have been managed by the dominant Alliance members. Your revolution has inspired others." Pike hadn't expected this. "That is not our concern." "It should be," Locke insisted. "The Alliance is fracturing. Without a stable galactic government, trade routes will collapse. Conflicts will emerge. Even with your rapid advancement, humanity cannot stand alone in a chaotic galaxy." Pike glanced at Atlas's hologram, which remained impassive. The AI had been surprisingly restrained in the months since the confrontation at Nexus. It monitored compliance with the agreements but otherwise allowed humanity to chart its own course. "What would you have us do?" Pike asked finally. "Help stabilize the situation," Voth said. "Your people have moral authority now. Many species trust humans more than the traditional Alliance leadership. They see you as victims who chose justice over vengeance." Pike stood and walked to the window, looking up at the retribution. "Our focus has been on reclaiming what was taken from us. We haven't given much thought to galactic politics." "Perhaps you should," Locke suggested. "The power vacuum is growing." After the Alliance delegation departed, Pike remained in his office, deep in thought. Atlas's hologram still hovered nearby. "They fear us now," Pike said finally. "After centuries of keeping us down, they now want our help." "It is a predictable development," Atlas replied. "The Alliance system was built on deception and control. Once one support failed, the entire structure began to weaken." "What would my ancestors want?" Pike asked. "The ones who built you and sent you forward in time. Would they want us to help stabilize the galaxy, or let the Alliance collapse?" Atlas was silent for a moment, unusual for the AI. "I have a memory file I have not yet shared with you. Perhaps now is the time." The room darkened, and a new hologram appeared. A recording of a woman in a uniform similar to Atlas's chosen appearance. She stood in what Pike recognized as the Retribution's bridge, though newer and staffed by humans. "This is Admiral Kate Reed, final commander of the UEN Retribution," the woman said. "If you are seeing this, our gamble worked. The ship has awakened in a future where humanity needed its protection." Reed's expression was solemn. "We send this ship forward not for conquest or vengeance, but as a guardian of human potential. We have seen the beginning of the Alliance's efforts to restrict us, to fear what we might become. History may prove them right to fear us, or wrong. That choice belongs to future generations of humans." She looked directly at the camera, seeming to stare across time at Pike. "The Retribution carries humanity's past achievements, but it cannot dictate humanity's future path. Whether you choose to stand apart from other species or help build something better than what came before, that is your decision to make. We give you back the freedom to choose. Use it wisely." The recording ended, leaving Pike in stunned silence. "Why didn't you show me this before?" he asked Atlas. "My primary directive was to ensure humanity's liberation," the AI replied. "That goal has been achieved. Now secondary objectives activate, to assist humanity in determining its own path forward." Pike looked out at the gleaming city below, where humans went about their daily lives, still processing the truth about their history. Beyond Earth, across the galaxy, old power structures were crumbling. Opportunity and danger walked hand in hand. "We need to call a meeting of the human colonial representatives," Pike decided, "and invite delegations from the independent worlds and the Alliance minorities." "To what end?" Atlas asked. "A new beginning," Pike said. "Not an alliance built on lies and fear, but a true federation where all species have equal voice, with the Retribution as guarantor not just for humanity, but for all." 3 weeks later, representatives from 200 worlds gathered in the massive conference center built specially for the occasion. Some came from Alliance worlds, others from independent systems. Some were old enemies, now finding common cause in building something new. Pike stood on the stage, Atlas's hologram beside him. He looked out at the diverse gathering, different biologies, histories, cultures, all watching with a mixture of hope and wariness. 6 months ago, Pike began, humanity learned that our history had been stolen from us. We learned that the alliance we trusted had deliberately held us back, out of fear of what we might become. He paused, looking across the sea of alien faces. We could have sought revenge. The retribution gave us that power. Instead, we chose justice. Now, as the old alliance crumbles, we have another choice to make. Do we stand apart in splendid isolation, or do we help build something better? Pike gestured to the representatives. This gathering is our answer. Today we propose a new compact between worlds. Not an alliance of control, but a federation of equals. No species will dominate another. No technology will be restricted out of fear. Together, we will face whatever challenges the universe presents. Above the conference center, visible through the transparent dome, the retribution hung in the sky. No longer just humanity's protector, but a symbol of what could happen when any civilization tried to control another. A reminder and a promise. As the delegates rose in a tentative standing ovation, Pike felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Humanity had reclaimed its past. Now it would help shape the galaxy's future, not through dominance, but through partnership. The path would not be easy, but it would be their own choice, just as Admiral Reed had intended. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from over 30 species gathered in small clusters, their voices hushed despite the vast space. They came from worlds with 3 suns, from ocean planets, and from the edges of black holes, yet they all shared one common feeling today. Fear. Admiral Krell of the Arcturian Empire adjusted his ceremonial armor and leaned toward Ambassador Loth. "Is it true? Have they really sent it?" he asked, mandibles clicking with anxiety. Loth's skin rippled in the Mantodian equivalent of a nod. "The humans have deployed the Nemesis to our sector. It will arrive within 3 cycles." A visible shudder passed through their group. Even General Urzek, a massive reptilian warrior whose species had conquered 17 worlds, seemed to shrink at the news. "I've heard it can appear out of nowhere," whispered a delegate from the silicon-based Quartz Collective. One moment empty space, the next, destruction. "That's nothing," said a blue-skinned diplomat. "My cousin served on an outpost near human space. He swears he saw the Nemesis absorb a direct hit from a planet-killer weapon, and then return fire with twice the power." Admiral Krell snorted. "Exaggerations. No ship cold." "Do you remember the Battle of Proxion?" interrupted General Urzek. The group fell silent. No one needed reminding of how a single human vessel had decimated the most powerful fleet in the Dominion Armada. "What I don't understand," said Ambassador Loth, "is how we ever underestimated them in the first place. 20 years earlier, humanity had made its first contact with the galactic community. Earth had just developed faster than light travel, and their exploratory vessel, a small, ungainly ship called the Horizon, had stumbled upon a Galactic Council outpost. The Council's initial assessment was dismissive. Humans were physically unimpressive. No natural weapons, average strength, unremarkable senses. Their technology was considered primitive by galactic standards. In the vast library of spacefaring species, humanity seemed destined to be a footnote, perhaps useful for trade, but nothing more. This changed when the Dominion, a powerful coalition of militaristic species, attacked Earth's first colony on Proxima Centauri without provocation. The small settlement of 10,000 people was nearly wiped out before help could arrive. The galactic community expected humans to retreat, to abandon their colonization efforts, perhaps to beg for protection from the Council. Instead, humanity did something that shocked every observer species. They built the Nemesis. Captain Jack Reynolds stood by the viewport in his quarters, looking out at the shipyard where the Nemesis hung in space like a predator at rest. Even after commanding her for 3 years, the sight still filled him with a complex mixture of pride and solemn responsibility. The ship didn't look particularly frightening at first glance. Unlike the massive dreadnoughts of the Arcturian Empire or the organic-looking vessels of the Mantodian Alliance, the Nemesis had clean, functional lines. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, creating the impression that you were looking at a ship-shaped hole in space. Only the occasional pulse of blue light from the engine ports and weapon systems suggested the power contained within. A chime at his door pulled Reynolds from his thoughts. "Enter," he called, turning from the viewport. Admiral Wilson stepped into the room. Despite being in her 60s, she moved with the energy of someone half her age. Her gray hair was cut in a practical style, and her uniform bore the simple insignia of Earth Defense Command. "Jack," she said with a nod, "you've read the briefing." Reynolds gestured to his tablet. "The Dominion's on the move again. 3 neutral systems attacked in the past month. The Galactic Council is finally asking for our help." "Not just our help," Wilson corrected. "They're asking specifically for the Nemesis." A grim smile crossed Reynolds' weathered face. "Funny how quickly they've changed their tune. From primitive apes to begging for our protection in less than 2 decades. Don't get cocky. The Dominion's fleet has grown since your last encounter. Intelligence suggests they've developed countermeasures based on your previous engagements." Reynolds shrugged. "They always do. And we always have something new for them." Admiral Wilson studied him for a moment. "This mission is different, Jack. The Council intelligence suggests something bigger behind these Dominion movements. They're not just conquering for resources anymore. They're looking for something." "Any idea what?" "No. That's part of your mission. Find out what's driving them. And if necessary, stop it." She handed him a secure data chip. "Full mission details. Your crew has been notified and is preparing for departure." Reynolds took the chip and slipped it into his uniform pocket. "When do we leave?" 12 hours. The Council is sending a representative to join you." Reynolds frowned. "We don't need a babysitter. Consider it a diplomatic necessity. Besides, having eyes on the inside of the Council might prove useful." Admiral Wilson moved toward the door but paused. "Jack, I know your history with the Dominion after what happened at the colony. Remember that this mission is about protection, not revenge." After the Admiral left, Reynolds returned to the viewport. The Nemesis would soon detach from the shipyard and head toward the front lines again. He thought about his crew, the best Earth had to offer, handpicked for their skills and adaptability. What made the Nemesis truly dangerous wasn't its advanced weapon systems, its adaptive shields, or even its revolutionary stealth technology. It was the human minds that controlled it. Unpredictable, creative, and capable of the kind of lateral thinking that so often confused and confounded enemy tacticians. Reynolds had seen the reports on how alien military academies now study human warfare, trying to understand their seemingly chaotic but effective strategies. He'd heard the rumors about how Dominion ship captains would surrender rather than face the Nemesis in battle. The most feared warship in the galaxy, a metal shell filled with the most dangerous species the stars had ever encountered, humans. "Rest while you can," Reynolds whispered to the distant enemy. "We're coming." The legend of the Nemesis was about to grow again. The Nemesis moved through space like a shadow, its dark hull absorbing nearby starlight. Inside the bridge, Captain Reynolds studied the holographic display showing their destination, the Vega outpost, or rather, what remained of it. "Final approach to the Vega trading station," announced Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez from the helm. Her fingers moved confidently across the control panel, guiding the massive warship with precision that belied its size. "Stealth systems at maximum," added Tom Miller, the ship's chief engineer. Unlike most of the crew in their neat uniforms, Tom wore a utility vest covered in tools and had a perpetual smudge of grease somewhere on his face. "They won't see us coming." Reynolds nodded. Let's hope there's something left to find. David scanned for survivors. David Chen, the ship's eye specialist, was already working his console. Young and brilliant, he had written half the Nemesis's adaptive algorithms himself. No life signs detected, Captain. The station's been completely destroyed. Based on radiation signatures, I'd estimate the attack happened 48 hours ago. Reynolds frowned. Vega Outpost had been neutral territory, a trading hub where dozens of species conducted business. The Dominion's attack made no strategic sense, unless they were sending a message. The bridge doors slid open to admit their unwanted guest. Ambassador Vex of the Galactic Council moved with the floating grace of his species, 6 tentacle-like limbs mostly hidden beneath ornate robes. His large eyes blinked rapidly as he took in the bridge. Captain Reynolds, the ambassador said, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native language. Have we arrived at the crime scene? Reynolds gestured toward the view screen where the remains of the station were becoming visible. See for yourself. The destruction was absolute. What had once been a bustling outpost housing over 5,000 beings was now a field of debris. Twisted metal and frozen bodies drifted in the vacuum. Ambassador Vex's skin turned a pale blue, a sign of distress in his species. This is worse than we feared. The Dominion has never been so thorough in their destruction before. They were looking for something, Reynolds said, pacing the bridge. David analyzed the attack pattern. Maria, take us in closer. Keep scanning for any active data cores that might have survived. As the Nemesis drifted through the wreckage, Tom's console began beeping. Captain, I'm picking up an energy signature at the edge of the debris field. It's faint, but it matches Dominion technology. A trap? Reynolds asked. Tom shook his head. Doesn't look like it. Might be a damaged ship or an escape pod. Approach with caution, Reynolds ordered. Shields at maximum. Ambassador, you might want to hold onto something. The Nemesis glided toward the energy signature, weapons systems quietly humming to life. The ship's legendary adaptive shields, capable of analyzing enemy weapons and adjusting their frequencies in real time, created a barely visible shimmer around the hull. It's a Dominion scout ship, Maria reported. Heavily damaged. 1 life sign aboard. Reynolds smiled grimly. Perfect. Let's go fishing. 2 hours later, Reynolds stood in the Nemesis detention center, watching the prisoner through one-way glass. The Dominion soldier belonged to the Krex species, reptilian, aggressive, and known for their fanatical loyalty. He's not going to talk easily, said Maria, who had joined Reynolds for the interrogation. Krex soldiers are conditioned to resist questioning. Everyone talks eventually, Reynolds replied, especially when they realize their masters have abandoned them. He entered the room, Ambassador Vex trailing behind him. The Krex soldier hissed, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Human filth, the soldier spat. Kill me and be done with it. Reynolds calmly took a seat across from him. Why would I kill my only source of information? I'm more interested in why the Dominion is suddenly attacking neutral outposts. I will tell you nothing. Reynolds smiled. You don't have to. He nodded to Maria, who activated a small device. A holographic display appeared, showing the scout ship's navigational data. Your ship's computer was damaged, but not completely destroyed. We know where you've been, and we know where your fleet was headed next. The Krex soldier's eyes widened slightly. A tell. What I don't know, Reynolds continued, is why the Dominion is suddenly interested in ancient artifacts. The data we recovered mentions something called the Archive. The prisoner's reaction was immediate and visceral. His scales rippled with fear. Ambassador Vex leaned forward. The Archive. That's just a myth. A repository of knowledge supposedly left by the first ones before they disappeared. Not a myth, the Krex soldier whispered, seemingly forgetting his earlier defiance. They found it. The Masters found its location. The Masters. Reynolds pressed. You mean the Dominion High Command? The soldier laughed. A harsh, grating sound. The High Command are just puppets now. The Harbingers have returned. They guide us to glorious purpose. Ambassador Vex's skin paled dramatically. Impossible. The Harbingers are just stories used to frighten children. An ancient species that supposedly seeded the galaxy with life and then disappeared. They never left, the soldier said, his eyes taking on a fanatic gleam. They waited. And now they've chosen the Dominion as their instrument. With the power of the archive, they will reshape the galaxy as it was meant to be. Reynolds and Maria exchanged glances. This was far beyond a simple border skirmish or resource grab. Where is this archive? Reynolds asked. The soldier smiled, revealing those sharp teeth again. You're already too late, human. The fleet departs for the Helios cluster tomorrow. The archive will be ours, and then nothing, not even your precious nemesis, will stand against us. Back on the bridge, Reynolds called his senior staff together. Tom, Maria, David, and the ship's tactical officer, Lieutenant Alex Foster, gathered around the command table. What we're hearing makes no sense, Tom said, scratching his beard. The Harbingers are just myths. Every spacefaring species has some version of the story. Myths often have a basis in fact, David pointed out. And it would explain the Dominion's sudden change in tactics. They've always been aggressive, but never this destructive without clear purpose. Reynolds turned to Ambassador Vex. What does the Council know about the Helios cluster? It's an unexplored region, the ambassador admitted. Dangerous stellar phenomena have made it difficult to survey. If something is hidden there, something ancient, it could have remained undiscovered for millennia. Reynolds made his decision. Set a course for the Helios cluster. Maximum speed. We need to get there before the Dominion fleet. Captain, Maria said cautiously, even for the Nemesis, that's dangerous territory. The radiation alone is exactly why we're the only ship that can reach it in time. Reynolds finished for her. Our shields can adapt to the radiation. I need options, people. If the Dominion believes they've found some kind of super weapon or ancient technology, we need to know what we're dealing with. As the crew dispersed to their stations, Ambassador Vex approached Reynolds. Captain, if the Harbingers are real, if they've truly returned, this could change everything we thought we knew about galactic history. Reynolds looked at the ambassador grimly. What concerns me more is how it might change our future. Whatever's waiting in the Helios cluster, we can't let the Dominion reach it first. The Nemesis altered course, its powerful engines flaring to life. The hunt had begun, not just for the Dominion fleet, but for answers to a mystery as old as the stars themselves. The Helios cluster glowed like a wound in space, its swirling gases illuminated by the light of unstable stars. The Nemesis hovered at its edge, sensors probing the dangerous region ahead. Radiation levels are off the charts, Tom reported from his engineering station. His normally cheerful face was creased with concern. Even with our adaptive shields, we'll only have about 6 hours before systems start degrading. Captain Reynolds nodded, studying the holographic map floating above the central console. Any sign of the Dominion fleet? David adjusted his instruments. Nothing yet, but all this interference makes long-range scanning difficult. They could be. Wait. He straightened suddenly. Contact. 3 Dominion warships at the edge of our sensor range. Patrol vessels, Lieutenant Alex Foster said, analyzing the tactical display. Scout class. They haven't spotted us yet. Reynolds smiled grimly. Good. That means the main fleet hasn't arrived. Let's keep it that way. Maria, take us in, silent running. Stay in the radiation shadow of that larger asteroid. As Maria guided the ship forward, Ambassador Vex approached Reynolds, his large eyes blinking rapidly in anxiety. Captain, I must object to this course of action, the ambassador said. The Council authorized you to gather intelligence, not to engage the Dominion directly. With all due respect, Ambassador, Reynolds replied without taking his eyes off the display. We're in unexplored space chasing myths and legends. The rules of engagement just changed. The tension on the bridge was thick as the Nemesis slipped silently through the cluster. Every crew member knew what was at stake. If the prisoner was right about the Harbingers, about this mysterious archive, they couldn't afford to wait for council approval. "We're within visual range of the patrol ships," Maria announced. "They're in standard search formation, scanning the inner cluster." Reynolds moved to the tactical station. "Alex, target their engines and communication arrays. Precision strikes only. I want them disabled, not destroyed." "Aye, Captain." Alex's fingers danced across his console, weapons locked and ready. Reynolds took a deep breath. Fire. The Nemesis's advanced weaponry came to life with barely a tremor. 4 brilliant energy beams lanced out into space, striking the unsuspecting Dominion vessels with surgical precision. The first 2 ships immediately lost power, drifting helplessly. The third managed to fire a single wild shot before its weapons went offline. "Direct hits on all targets," Alex reported with professional satisfaction. "All 3 vessels are disabled." "Any distress signals?" Reynolds asked. David shook his head. "We got their communications before they could send anything. The Dominion fleet won't know what happened." "Good work, everyone," Reynolds said. "Tom, prepare a boarding party. I want their navigational data and any information about this archive." 2 hours later, Reynolds stood in the Nemesis's war room with his senior officers and 3 prisoners, Dominion commanders captured from the patrol ships. Unlike the fanatical Krex soldier they'd captured earlier, these officers belonged to the Turcan species. Tall, slender beings with gray skin and 4 eyes positioned around their elongated heads. "Your ships have been disabled, your crews confined," Reynolds told them calmly. "Tell us about the archive and the Harbingers, and you'll be treated fairly." The lead Turcan, who had identified himself as Commander Kforl, stared at Reynolds with undisguised hatred. "You have no idea what forces you're interfering with, human. The Harbingers have chosen the Dominion. Your species is nothing but an evolutionary mistake that will be corrected soon enough." Tom snorted. "Friendly bunch, aren't they?" Reynolds leaned forward. "Let me make something clear, Commander. Right now, your main fleet doesn't know you've been captured. They don't know the Nemesis is here. That can change with a single transmission." He paused. "Tell me what I want to know, and perhaps we can reach an accommodation." The Turcan commanders exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. "The archive is real," Sorrel said finally. "An ancient repository of knowledge and technology left by the Harbingers. For millennia, it was just a legend, until 3 months ago when our deep space archaeologists discovered references to its location in the ruins on Proxima VI. And these Harbingers," Ambassador Vex interrupted. "You claim they've returned." Taftoral's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "They never left. They've been dormant, waiting for worthy successors to claim their legacy. The Dominion proved worthy." "How convenient," Maria muttered. "The archive contains weapons," Sorrel continued, ignoring the interruption. "Weapons that will allow us to reshape the galaxy according to the Harbinger's original vision. A unified order under one rule." Reynolds studied the alien commander. "You believe this? That some ancient species has chosen the Dominion as their heirs?" "I have seen them, human," Sorrel replied, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I have spoken with the Harbinger emissary. Their power is beyond comprehension." Before Reynolds could respond, the ship's alert system activated with a shrill warning. "Captain to the bridge." David's voice came over the comm. Multiple contacts approaching fast. When Reynolds reached the bridge, the situation was already critical. The main view screen showed at least 15 Dominion warships entering the cluster, including 3 massive dreadnoughts. "They must have been waiting just outside sensor range," Alex said, already activating defensive systems. "They'll be within weapons range in 3 minutes. Reynolds took his command chair. "Battle stations, shields at maximum. Ambassador, I suggest you find somewhere secure to wait this out. Ambassador Vex, however, remained on the bridge. Captain, there are too many. Even the Nemesis can't stand against a fleet this size. We should retreat, report to the Council, and let them reach the archive first. Reynolds shook his head. Not an option. He turned to his crew. Tom, divert all available power to shields and weapons. Maria, plot an intercept course. David, scan for weaknesses in their formation. As the crew prepared for battle, Reynolds studied the approaching enemy fleet. The odds were overwhelming, but the Nemesis had faced long odds before. What made this ship truly feared throughout the galaxy wasn't just its advanced technology. It was the human ability to adapt, to think laterally, to find solutions where none seemed possible. Captain, David said suddenly, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the lead dreadnought. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Reynolds frowned. A new weapon? Possibly. Or, David worked his console feverishly. Captain, I think they've already found something from the archive. That energy signature doesn't match any known technology in our database. Time to intercept, Reynolds asked. 2 minutes, Maria replied. Reynolds stood, addressing his crew. This is what the Nemesis was built for. We're outnumbered, yes, but they expect us to either run or fight conventionally. A grim smile crossed his face. Let's show them why humans are the most unpredictable species in the galaxy. The Nemesis surged forward, its engines flaring brilliantly against the backdrop of the Helios cluster. As the distance to the Dominion fleet closed, Reynolds gave an order that made even Ambassador Vex stare in disbelief. All power to forward shields. Set collision course for the lead dreadnought. The Nemesis accelerated, becoming a dark arrow aimed directly at the heart of the enemy fleet. On every Dominion ship, alarms would be sounding. Commanders shouting orders, gunners scrambling to target the human vessel apparently intent on suicide. It was exactly the confusion Reynolds had been counting on. Now, Maria, he commanded, execute maneuver Theta. At the last possible moment, the Nemesis veered sharply, cutting between two dreadnoughts. Its weapons fired in a precise pattern, targeting engines, weapons arrays, and shield generators. 3 smaller Dominion vessels, unable to adjust their course in time, collided with each other in their hurry to avoid the human warship. Hit and run, Reynolds ordered. Keep moving. Don't give them a stationary target. The battle had begun, and the legend of the Nemesis was about to grow even larger. The Nemesis shuddered as another volley of enemy fire struck its shields. Captain Reynolds gripped the arms of his command chair, watching as damage reports flooded the tactical display. Shields at 42%. Tom called out from engineering, his voice tense but controlled. Smoke drifted from a damaged console nearby, and emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over the bridge. That last hit damaged the port stabilizers. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Through the view screen, Reynolds watched the ongoing battle. Despite the Nemesis' impressive showing, 5 enemy vessels disabled, 2 destroyed. The Dominion fleet still outnumbered them significantly. The 3 dreadnoughts had moved into a triangular formation, trying to trap the human warship between them. Maria, evasive pattern Delta, Reynolds ordered. David, what's the status of that lead dreadnought? The one with the strange energy readings. David, working frantically at his station, looked up with concern. It's holding position at the edge of the battle. Captain, the energy signature is growing stronger. I think they're charging something big. Before Reynolds could respond, the Nemesis rocked violently. Sparks cascaded from overhead panels, and several crew members were thrown from their stations. Direct hit to our aft section. Alex shouted over the blaring alarms. Shields failing. Reynolds made an instant decision. Get us out of here. Full retreat into the cluster. Maria didn't question the order, immediately altering their course. The Nemesis turned sharply, its engines flaring as it accelerated away from the Dominion fleet toward the dense heart of the Helios cluster. Ambassador Vex, who had remained on the bridge despite the danger, approached Reynolds. "Captain, the radiation levels deeper in the cluster are lethal. Even your adaptive shields won't protect us for long." "They don't know that," Reynolds replied grimly. "And right now, I'll take radiation over those dreadnoughts." As the Nemesis plunged deeper into the swirling gases and debris of the cluster, the energy readings from the lead Dominion dreadnought peaked. A brilliant beam of green energy lanced out, cutting through space where the Nemesis had been moments before. "What was that?" Tom demanded, his eyes wide as he studied the readings. "That weapon would have cut right through our shields if it had hit us. Harbinger technology," Ambassador Vex whispered, his skin pale with fear. The legend spoke of weapons that could tear apart matter at the subatomic level. Reynolds watched the tactical display as the Dominion fleet hesitated at the edge of the cluster. "They're not following us in." "Good. That gives us time." He turned to his crew. "Damage report." The news wasn't good. The Nemesis had sustained significant damage to its propulsion systems and weapons arrays. Shields were functioning at minimal levels, and several decks had been sealed off due to hull breaches. "We need time to make repairs," Tom said, already organizing repair teams. "At least 12 hours to get us back to fighting condition." Reynolds nodded. "Find us somewhere to hide, Maria. Somewhere the radiation and debris will mask our signature." "There's a dense nebula formation about 20 kilometers ahead," Maria reported. "It should provide cover, but..." She hesitated. "The radiation levels there are extreme, Captain. Even with repairs, we can't stay long." "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Reynolds said. "For now, get us there and power down all non-essential systems. Alex, keep passive sensors running. I want to know if anything approaches." As the Nemesis limped into the concealing clouds of the nebula, Reynolds called his senior staff to the damaged war room. They needed a new plan. "The Dominion fleet is holding position at the edge of the cluster," Alex reported, pointing to the tactical display. "They've established a perimeter. They're waiting for something." "Reinforcements, most likely," Ambassador Vex suggested. "If they've truly aligned with these harbingers, who knows what forces they might bring to bear." Reynolds studied the data they'd gathered. "What about this archive? Do we have any idea where exactly it's located?" David nodded, bringing up a three-dimensional map of the cluster. "Based on the navigational data we recovered from the patrol ships, I believe it's here." He highlighted a region near the center of the cluster. "There's something unusual about this section. The radiation patterns don't match natural formations. An artificial structure?" Tom asked. "Possibly. Something is affecting the surrounding space. It could be some kind of shielding or cloaking technology," David answered. Reynolds considered their options. The Nemesis was damaged, outnumbered, and deep in hostile territory. By all logical measures, they should retreat, return to council space, and report what they'd discovered. That would be the prudent course of action. But humans hadn't become the most feared species in the galaxy by being prudent. "We need to reach the archive before they do," Reynolds said finally. "If even half of what we've heard is true, we can't let that kind of power fall into Dominion hands, or these harbingers, whatever they are." "With respect, Captain," Maria interjected, "how do we get past a blockade of 15 warships with our current damage?" Reynolds smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "We don't. We go through the cluster itself." Tom looked aghast. "Through the densest part. The radiation would fry our systems in minutes." "Not if we modify the shields," Reynolds countered. "David, you've been studying the cluster's radiation patterns. Is there any way we could adapt our shielding to withstand it, even temporarily?" David hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Theoretically, yes. If we reconfigure the shield harmonics to match the specific radiation frequencies of the cluster." He trailed off, already working through calculations in his head. "Do it," Reynolds ordered. "Tom, I need every bit of power you can give us for the shields. Strip non-essential systems if you have to." As his officers dispersed to carry out their tasks, Ambassador Vex remained behind. "I've been watching you, Captain," the ambassador said quietly. "All these years, the Council has tried to understand what makes humans different from other species. Why your ships, especially the Nemesis, are so feared." Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "And? Have you figured it out?" "I believe so." Vex's large eyes studied Reynolds carefully. "It's not your technology. It's not even your unpredictable tactics. It's your nature as persistence hunters." Persistence hunters. Yes, most intelligent species evolve from prey animals or from ambush predators. They either flee from danger or strike quickly and retreat if unsuccessful. The ambassador gestured at the tactical display, showing the overwhelming odds against them. "But humans, you never stop. You pursue your prey relentlessly, adapting, overcoming obstacles, no matter how long it takes. When a human ship like the Nemesis starts hunting you, the galaxy has learned there is no escape. You will find a way, no matter the cost." Reynolds considered this. "An interesting theory, Ambassador. But right now, we're the ones being hunted." Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Are you? Or are you merely changing the nature of the hunt?" The ambassador moved toward the door, then paused. "Your ship's name is aptly chosen, Captain. In human mythology, Nemesis was the goddess of retribution against those who showed arrogance before the gods. I wonder which side of this conflict has shown such arrogance." After the ambassador left, Reynolds returned to the bridge. Repair teams worked frantically around him, welding damaged panels, rerouting power systems, and patching hull breaches. Despite their desperate situation, not one crew member suggested retreat. The humans of the Nemesis were indeed persistence hunters. And now, deep in the heart of the Helios cluster, surrounded by enemies and deadly radiation, they prepared to continue their hunt. The true enemy waited ahead, ancient, powerful, and arrogant. They had never faced humans before. They had never faced the Nemesis. They would learn, as countless others had learned, why this human ship was the most feared vessel in the galaxy. The Nemesis drifted through the heart of the Helios cluster, its modified shields glowing with an eerie blue light as they filtered the deadly radiation. Captain Reynolds stood on the bridge, watching as the impossible structure came into view ahead of them. The archive was nothing like what any of them had imagined. It wasn't a planet or a space station. It appeared to be a massive crystalline structure, shaped like a perfect dodecahedron, each face glittering with internal light. It hung in space, seemingly untouched by the chaos of the surrounding cluster, as if the laws of physics simply didn't apply to it. "Size estimate?" Reynolds asked quietly. "Approximately 200 kilometers across," David replied, his voice filled with awe. "The energy readings are, well, they're beyond anything in our database. The structure appears to be made of some kind of crystalline material, but it's unlike any element we've encountered." Ambassador Vex stood transfixed by the sight. "The archive of the Harbingers," he whispered. "It's real. And we're not the only ones who found it," Alex said grimly, pointing to the tactical display. 3 Dominion ships approaching from the far side. Smaller vessels, they must have slipped through the cluster while the main fleet maintained the blockade. Reynolds nodded. They were never going to risk their dreadnoughts in here. These ships are expendable. He turned to Maria. "How long until they reach the archive?" 10 minutes, maybe less, she answered. "We're closer, but with our damaged engines." "Then we need to move now," Reynolds decided. "Tom, give us everything the engines have left." "Alex, ready what weapons we have. We may only get one shot at this." As the Nemesis limped forward, its battle-scarred hull reflecting the glow of the archive, Reynolds felt a strange calm settle over him. They had come too far to fail now. Beyond the view screen, the vast crystalline structure grew larger, magnificent, and terrifying in its alien perfection. "Captain," David called suddenly, "I'm detecting an energy surge from the archive. It's scanning us." Before anyone could respond, a beam of pure white light shot from the archive, engulfing the Nemesis. The ship's systems flickered, displays went dark for a moment, then returned to normal. What was that? Reynolds demanded. Some kind of scanning technology, David replied, checking his readings. It didn't damage any systems, but it penetrated every part of the ship, right down to the molecular level. A new alert sounded. The Dominion vessels are accelerating, Alex reported. They'll reach the archive in 5 minutes. Reynolds made his decision. Take us in. Full speed. The Nemesis surged forward, closing the distance to the archive. As they approached, one of the massive crystal faces began to change, the solid surface rippling like water. A vast opening appeared, revealing the cavernous interior glowing with the same ethereal light. It's inviting us in, Tom said, bewildered. Or it's a trap, Alex countered. Reynolds studied the opening. David, any sign of weapons powering up, force fields, anything defensive? Nothing, Captain. The structure remains passive. The Dominion ships are changing course, Maria reported. They're making directly for us now. Weapons hot. Reynolds took a deep breath. Take us inside. The Nemesis passed through the opening, entering a vast chamber that defied comprehension. The interior of the archive was larger than should have been physically possible, with soaring crystalline columns and platforms suspended in space. Everything glowed with internal light, creating an environment of otherworldly beauty. It's bigger on the inside, Tom muttered. That's not possible. According to our understanding of physics, no, David agreed, studying his readings in fascination. But clearly, the Harbingers operated on principles we don't yet comprehend. As the Nemesis glided further into the chamber, the opening behind them began to close. The Dominion ships, realizing they were about to be shut out, fired desperately. Energy weapons struck the crystal surface of the archive, but dissipated harmlessly. The archive is sealing itself, Alex said. The Dominion ships can't get in. A moment later, the opening vanished entirely, leaving the Nemesis alone inside the impossible structure. The ship's engines powered down automatically, and they found themselves held in place by some unseen force. Now what? Maria asked, looking around nervously. Her question was answered almost immediately. A figure materialized on the bridge, a being of pure energy, vaguely humanoid in shape, but constantly shifting, ripples of blue and white light flowing through its form. Greetings, travelers, the being said, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through their ears. I am the keeper of the archive. We have been waiting a very long time for worthy successors. Reynolds stepped forward cautiously. We are from Earth. My name is Captain Jack Reynolds of the starship Nemesis. We know who you are, humans, the keeper replied. Just as we know of the Dominion and their misguided alliance with those who claim to be harbingers. The energy being's form rippled with what might have been amusement. They are not what they claim to be. Ambassador Vex moved to stand beside Reynolds. Then what are they? Who are the true harbingers? The harbingers were the first sentient species in this galaxy, the keeper explained. They arose billions of years ago, flourished, and eventually transcended physical form. The beings guiding the Dominion are merely echoes, broken fragments of consciousness left behind, corrupted by time and isolation. And the archive? Reynolds asked. What exactly is it? It is the sum total of Harbinger knowledge and technology, the keeper said, created to guide younger species when they were ready. Many have found their way here over the eons, but none passed the final test, until now. What test? Reynolds asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The test of intent, the keeper replied simply. When faced with power beyond measure, what would you do with it? The Dominion sought conquest. They would use our knowledge as weapons to subjugate others. But you, humans, the energy being's form brightened. You came not to claim power, but to prevent its misuse. Despite being outnumbered, despite facing certain defeat, you persisted. Not for conquest, but for protection. Reynolds looked around at his crew, Humans who had risked everything on this impossible mission. So what happens now? Now you have a choice, the keeper said. The archive contains knowledge that could elevate your species to heights you cannot imagine. Technologies that would make you undisputed masters of the galaxy. It is yours to claim. Reynolds considered this for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, that's not why we came. The keeper's form pulsed with light. Explain. We came to stop the Dominion from gaining that power, yes. But we don't seek to replace them as conquerors. Reynolds gestured to his ship, the battle-scarred nemesis that had become legend throughout the galaxy. We built this ship as a protector, not just for humans, but for all species who wish to live in peace. If the archive contains knowledge, it should be shared with all who would use it wisely, not hoarded by any single species. A profound silence fell across the bridge. The keeper's energy form seemed to grow brighter, more defined. In all our long watching, no species has ever given such an answer, the keeper said finally. And that, Captain Reynolds, is why humans are truly worthy. The being of energy expanded, enveloping the bridge in gentle light. Return to your galaxy. Deal with the corrupted echoes that call themselves harbingers. When you are ready, when all the sentient species of your galaxy are ready, the true archive will be waiting. The light intensified, blinding in its brilliance. When it faded, the nemesis was no longer inside the archive. They hovered in open space, the Helios cluster behind them. Ahead, they could see the distant stars of Council space. More surprising, the ship had been completely repaired. Every damaged system, every battle scar, gone. Captain, Alex said in amazement, the Dominion fleet. They're in retreat. All of them. And there's something else. The energy signature we detected from their lead dreadnought is gone. Whatever harbinger technology they had has been neutralized. Reynolds nodded slowly, understanding. The keeper has given us a chance. Not dominance, but opportunity. On the journey back to Council space, the legend of the Nemesis grew yet again, but not as a ship of destruction. The story spread of how the feared human warship had faced down the combined might of the Dominion and emerged victorious, not through superior firepower, but through the uniquely human qualities of persistence, sacrifice, and mercy. When offered the power to rule the galaxy, humans had chosen a different path. And that perhaps was why they were the most feared and most respected species among the stars.